That time again, folks, we're talking about more physical media. Is it joyful? Is it sadness? I don't know. It's more necessity. The necessity of physical media, I think. I don't know. I was trying to find a good adjective to describe it. Again, like joy or sadness or anger or whatever. But no, I think necessity is kind of... There might be a different title name, but that's the point of this video. So I want to be talking about the necessity of it. Because today, as of the something of June, it was talked about on Twitter how Disney and even the Criterion Channel are showing a version of The French Connection which is censored. And this is not exactly a good thing. If you've heard of it, then you know what the news is. If you haven't heard of it, then I'll kind of break it down to a degree. It was revealed today that there is a scene in The French Connection, the, 1980-something film, that was censored. And by censored, I mean they took out a line of dialogue. But more or less, they took out an exchange of dialogue because one of the lines of dialogue includes Gene Hackman's character saying a racial slur. In this case, I'm pretty sure he says the N-word. So, obviously, bare context, if you take it out of context, you're like, wow, that's kind of shitty that he said that. We should remove that. But that's a bad thing. His character saying that gives you a kind of light on his character, being a cop, being white, being American, being of the period of the time. Not to say that it was ever acceptable, but to emphasize a perspective that his character has. There's a essence, a necessity to him saying it. Like, he's not constantly blurting it out, this ain't a Tarantino film, but they censored it nonetheless. And it's like a character thing, it shows that he's not a great person despite doing quote-unquote good things as being a officer of the law, And a lot of people remember the film for its chase scenes and its action and stuff like that, to the point that it does have a sequel. Now, why I'm getting into this and how it pertains to physical media is a simple factor of this is what actually convinced me to finally buy the film on Blu-ray. I've been wanting to buy the first and second film. I've never seen the second one. I've only ever seen the first one on DVD. I've been wanting to buy the Blu-rays for maybe a year or two now. But I've always been like, I'll get to it eventually. I knew that there were two different releases for both versions. There is the signature release for the first film, which is like I don't know if it's a 4K scan, but it's like the best looking version of the film, best special features, that kind of selection. Whereas there is a UK version, which is a 2-pack, which Australia did have a release, which is long out of print now, where it just comes with the first and second films, but they're like, the first one in particular is coated with a lot of digital noise reduction. And that's, never a great thing. So hence I found out about the American version, and I'm like, I prefer to buy that. We get to today. Today I bought both, as in the American signature version and the 2-pack as well, for about $20 each, which isn't terrible given how, the signature edition for $20 on eBay, pretty good. It's shipping from the US. A lot of people were buying it, even said 3 have been sold in the past 24 hours. They didn't have that many left. And I'm like, I'm not missing out on this opportunity. I'm already trying to get a bunch of Cronenberg films. There is a British release of one of his films that so happens to be, I think it's A History of Violence. And the British release doesn't have digital noise reduction. And I don't know if it has more special features or not. I think it's like maybe missing a special feature that the US edition has. However, the US edition has digital noise reduction on it. So it's like, okay, well, clearly I want to get the British one. And the one I was following on eBay sold out within like 2 hours after I wanted to buy it, after I'd looked for it and added it to my watch list and whatever. So that kind of sucks on my part. However, I'm like, I'm not going to miss out on the French Connection. I'm not going to do that to myself. So on eBay, I bought the $20 version of the signature release. Good. I'm happy with that. And on Amazon, they happen to have a special, a timely special, which usually you'd think out being a marketplace kind of thing, they'd rank the prices up. And so I bought the 2-pack because I want to get the second one as well. I know that they're both on Disney+. That was like the main reason. I was like, I don't need to buy them. They're on Disney+. Well, you know how there's a thing called irony? Well, it's finally slapped me in the face for a movie I've actually been wanting to watch for a while. My main benefit of watching a lot of the films that are on Disney Plus or whatever, which is a service I don't pay for, it's my girlfriend's account. Hey. But there's these benefits that I have, where I can just watch movies on that and not have to worry about buying the physical versions of them to some degree. Because I don't always love supporting big corporations. Shut up. I know, there's a bit of irony in what I'm wearing as well. I just happened to throw on a t-shirt. I didn't realize, and then I realized, and I'm like, you know what? This kind of still matters, because in regard of keeping physical media to its initial versions, keeping movies to their initial versions, like theatrical, even if there's a director's cut, whatever, and having them on physical and not removing them. Because not just was the French Connection changed on Disney Plus and on the Criterion Channel, it was changed on all digital platforms. So if you bought it on iTunes, they've changed it. They've changed the release, which is ridiculous that they can even do that, especially if you've bought this digital copy of this film from years beforehand. Or maybe you bought the Blu-ray and it came with a digital copy. That digital copy might be changed. I don't think so. I'm pretty sure it's just like if you buy it from like iTunes or whatever, it'll change. To the point that they can also just remove the film completely from your library. Haha, digital buys. Buy this shit. It's worth it. So that was one of the main things that I wanted to kind of discuss about this video. But it's also like, when it comes to physical media, I'm like, there has to be a really amazing benefit to it. And like, I can contrast this basically with also having watched The Little Mermaid recently, the original 89 version, on Disney Plus, because I watched the 4K, so I don't have to give money to Disney, so I can watch it. And it still looks fantastic, and I would honestly love to add that to my collection. I know that there was 2 different releases on 4K for Cinderella. I believe it was Cinderella. Or it was Beauty and the Beast. One of the two have had 2 different 4K releases, because their initial 4K release, apparently I'm pretty sure they did a bunch of like DNR, which like removed a lot of the line work for the characters. And so they've re-released it to give you the original version. I'm pretty sure it was Cinderella, but it might have been Beauty and the Beast. Either way, that's also a thing. You know, the authenticity not being replicated when it should have been, you know. So something like the French Connection, those Blu-rays are probably going to go out of print now, because I imagine if they're going to print new Blu-rays, it's going to be this edited version. Now, it might not be. That might be just for the streaming rights of the movie, because, of course, Disney has the streaming rights because they bought 20th Century Fox, and I'm pretty sure it was under that label, or whatever other label they've bought it from, or however it happened to come into their possession. But the fact that it's been changed so dramatically, it's not a huge change. Again, it just takes out like 2-3 lines of dialogue. My colleague looked it up, and you can read the 3 lines of dialogue, and it's just them discussing a group of people, you know, and hence the character using the racial slur. So it's like, oh, okay, so he's this kind of a guy, you know. It's one of those things of like, it's, again, emphasizing character. But you remove that, and it's kind of, what the hell? It's like when on Disney Plus Splash came out, and they added CGI hair to cover up Daryl Hannah's butt, you know, when she's running into the water. It's just, why? It's so unnecessary, and a lot of people pointed fun at it. Same as when they added The Simpsons. They removed, they changed the aspect ratio to make it widescreen, which cut off like a whole bunch of the picture that was on the top of the bottom. This is stuff you've probably heard of before. I have one of the few episodes of The Simpsons that was deleted, as in the, I'm pretty sure it was the Michael Jackson episode. I still have that on my DVD release, I'm pretty sure. But I'm pretty sure I looked into it, because I found out that they had deleted that release on like most physical media and digitally, so you can't watch that episode again. Whether or not I want to, I don't need to, but I have the opportunity to, because it's there in my collection. It's there on my original DVDs. I mean, they are still the collector's edition DVDs, but like, it was before the censorship thing. So I wanted to go into another film. This is one I bought recently, the director's cut of Commando. This is actually the UK release, because this isn't exactly one of those things where it's kind of in a similar path of the benefit of buying physical media. I have 2 releases of this movie now. 2 releases. The Australian release and the UK release. The Australian release being the standard 90-minute long theatrical cut, and the British release being, how long is it? Isn't it like, wow, that's actually really interesting. It says it's 85 minutes long on the director's cut, which is very weird because I'm pretty sure it's meant to be the other way around. How the hell does it say 90 minutes on this and says 85 minutes on... That's kind of confusing. I've got to look into it. But at the same time, this has both cuts. It has both the original theatrical feature and the director's cut, as well as commentary. Whereas this, the only special features you get are trailers for a bunch of movies. Wonderful. Still good artwork on either release. But I bought this release. I got this for $10 at like JB years ago. I bought the director's cut specifically because I went and saw it at the cinema. The Cinemaniacs were doing a screening, and I found out during that screening that there was a director's cut, which was like a few minutes longer and had some more bloodier kills, whatever. It's nothing overly necessary, but there is some extra character stuff that, sure, isn't exactly harmful. And this is kind of a different situation. It's different to the French Connection thing where they've purposely like cut stuff out. This is just a director's cut of the film, much like with the Alien films, you know, Blade Runner, that kind of stuff. In this case, it's more of the only way I could watch the director's cut of the film was to buy the Blu-ray because it's not available on streaming. Apparently it is now on, I think, Amazon Prime in like the UK or the US. I don't know, there's a streaming service that I recently saw tweeted about. Someone had tweeted about it saying, hey, lucky people on this streaming service in this country can now watch the director's cut of this film, you know? And that's really good. You know, it's nice to know that there are streaming services that will still offer such a showcase. It is still bizarre to me that there are two different runtimes written down. Nevertheless, it gets to this point where, when it comes to physical media releases, it's really nice to actually have the original versions. And I guess that kind of leads me to what is on my t-shirt here. I know this is actually from the Last Jedi film, but still, Star Wars. The obvious example of censorship. It's not censorship. That's the complete third option, where they've just added a bunch of crap and they have not released the original version on physical, which is a story as old as time itself in regards to physical media releases, I guess. Yeah, sure. I mean, not really, because it's like VHS had the original releases to the point that I still have those releases up on my shelf just so I can have them, as well as I have like the Project 4K 77 and stuff like that. So there is a necessity to physical media. The necessity being showcasing the correct or unaltered versions of films. I did a video recently talking about two different director's cuts, but more or less they were like the unrated cuts. One was the director's cut of Sucker Punch, the other was the unrated cut of Jennifer's Body. And how the two films added a lot of extra context that made the film better in general. I mean, Sucker Punch still isn't a fantastic film, it's a guilty pleasure, but I like the extended cut more because it actually adds some extra depth to the main character, stuff that you don't get in the theatrical cut. That's really kind of just washed through quickly and you don't really understand what the hell just happened. And that was like cut out for censorship for like a consensual sex scene. Jennifer's Body, on the other hand, just cuts out all this like extra part with all these side characters. Like apparently one of the many criticisms of the film when it first came out was how it seems very unnatural that there aren't people in the town concerned that people are dying. And the unrated cut shows that. It doesn't show realistically more blood or more gore, I don't think. But what it does show, and I kind of love that it's the unrated cut, yet it just doesn't really show anything else. I think most people were expecting to see Megan Fox's tits, but at the same time, it mostly just shows all the side characters who were like the parents of people who died, and it like gives you a interesting perspective into the world, and it kind of makes the film funnier, realistically. That's something that we benefited from because of physical media releases. I could argue the same for the Alien films, where you've gotten the special edition cut for Aliens, you've gotten basically director's cuts for all four movies, though two of them aren't director's cuts. The Alien director's cut is not the director's cut, that's the theatrical cut. They've only just added in a scene and trimmed down a bunch of other scenes to make it like 30 seconds like shorter in runtime, but still, it's stupid. Whereas Aliens, it's like, it's just a special edition. It's not a director's cut. It's a bunch of stuff that doesn't need to be in the film, but it's like cool that it is to some degree. Depends on how you want to view it. Do you like the Sentry Turrets? Do you like the stuff about her daughter? Do you like the Hadley Soap stuff? If so, you're going to love the special edition that goes for like a whole extra 40 minutes. Or you can watch the theatrical cut, which is a lot tighter and a lot nicer of a film. I still love the Ripley's daughter stuff. I don't really care for the rest of it. I could literally live without all the rest of the stuff that's in the extended cut. But I don't mind watching it every once in a while to remind myself as to just kind of what it is. Not as a why it's bad. It isn't bad, but more of a what it is, the different perspectives kind of stuff. It's better as a, if you watch the film for a second and or third time, you watch the special edition version, and it just makes it more interesting, I think, to some degree, because you get different perspectives, you get added stuff. So, whereas the third and fourth films, the assembly cut of the third film is a lot better than the theatrical cut, which is perfectly fine, because the theatrical cut kind of sucks, like, a lot. But I really still like the story, and that's added to in the assembly cut, which is like 40 minutes longer, and that's a better 40 minutes longer than the Aliens 40 minutes longer cut. I don't know if they're exactly 40 minutes, but I'm getting a rough average. And then you get like a 3-minute longer version for like the fourth film, and honestly, it doesn't change much, but I don't mind watching it because it's kind of goofy. Like, it's got a lot of CGI blobs smacked against the camera and stuff. It's really dumb, but it's fine. It's not a great film, but it is what it is. Again, popcorn, movie, guilty pleasure kind of stuff. So, this is just one of the many benefits of buying physical media. Like, the fact that this person was able to tweet about the fact that, you know, the French Connection had been altered digitally, and then to emphasize buying physical media, and then basically promoting the physical media release. And most people buying, because it's probably in the Americas, a lot of people buying the signature release, which is fine. It's the best release of the film. It's a better looking version, that kind of stuff. And they're probably looking at more of, oh, I'm going to get this release on Blu-ray to make sure I have the unaltered version. But then you also benefit from getting the version that actually looks good, because you get the other version, which is in the 2-pack, and you get a bunch of digital noise reduction. And you don't want digital noise reduction. It sucks. So I feel like I could ramble on about this for a long time, but there are the main benefits I'm seeing right now as to keeping around physical media is having untouched versions. Like, there might be edits here and there in terms of, like, color grading and whatnot, but if the film is still the same runtime that it's meant to be, the same theatrical or director's cut, whatever, even if they provide two different versions, like, I got a film called Backtrack recently, which is a kino release, and it has both the theatrical and the director's cut. It's great that it has both. I got an imprint set that has a film that has two different cuts of the same film in the one pack. I wasn't expecting that, but it comes with that. Same as if you watch The Haunting of Julia, it has two different versions, and it depends on what release. I went with the 4K Kino release because I wanted the Dolby Vision, but if you had the Australian release, and I think maybe the British release, so the imprint release in Australia, you had the opportunity to change the title of the movie because it has two different titles. What's the second title? I can't remember right now, but maybe if I just took off the sleeve. Oh, it's right there. Okay. It's called Full Circle, so you can watch either version, which is nice. You know, I've seen other films do that before where they've had different title cards. I think the Arrow video release of Zombie 2 has that, where you can change the title card to make it either Zombie Flesh Eaters, Zombie 2, Zombie. I think it has those three options. I don't remember. I don't have that Blu-ray anymore. But I do have the new 4K, so that's nice. But yeah, so it's one of those things that it's nice when, like, it's always nice when you can get something in physical media. It's nice when it's remastered for physical media. It's nice when it comes to director's commentary, featurettes, a bunch of special features, whatever. Even if it's as simple as an isolated score, you know, that's still great. Sometimes you get an extra disc, you get, you know, a CD soundtrack, you get a booklet, you get all this extra stuff. But it's just nice to have the bare necessities of a film sometimes. And that's my main respect to physical media. Something that you can't get in a lot of places. The amount of times my dad has wanted to watch a film that hasn't been on streaming, so he's had to resort to being like, hey, can you buy the Blu-ray? And that's great. That means more for my collection. I got Fiddler of the Roof for that exact reason. It comes with a buttload of special features. It's a long film, and it comes with a lot of special features. And it's nice to have that. Like, I got the whole Twilight Zone show just because I happened to watch a movie where a guy had the whole show on VHS, and I'm like, I wonder if they've released that on Blu-ray. And lo and behold, they've done like 4K remasters of like every single episode, including special features. Like, that's amazing. That's the whole original show in original preservation, remastered. It does have remastered sound, but I mean, it really depends if you want to go with original or alternate. And that's also another thing. Sound choices. A lot of people like to go original theatrical sound. Some people like to go mono. Some people like to go stereo. Some people like to go 5.1, 7.1, Dolby Atmos, DTS:X, Master HD, whatever the frag doodle, damn it, that you want to go damn do. It's up to you. I like to go with whatever sounds better to me at the time. It just is what it is. Like, I've seen films before where I'd watched Perfect Blue with my partner, and it sounded really off, and it's because we were listening to, like, the mono mix, and it just sounded, like, canny and quiet. But then I changed it to, like, the 5.1 mix, and bam, it sounded a lot more open, a lot more sparse. So, that can be up to the beholder. Like, say, if they want to get the Dolby Vision version of a film with a 4K UHD, or just get a 4K remaster on Blu-ray. Because, again, maybe you just want the special features over a higher quality version of the film. So, yeah. So, keep an eye out. It's one of the many things to do with physical media where you just get the right version, hopefully, of a movie. And sometimes they just don't have that. Sometimes they've released an edited version, like with Star Wars, and you kind of get what you're given. But sometimes you have the original VHS or the DVD that came out in the 90s or early 2000s, and maybe it's got a few extra edits, but once you compare that to the latest 4K UHD and realize how many other edits have been added, you just kind of be like, you go with either authenticity or best looking picture. Or even best sound. Like, when I showed my partner the Star Wars trilogy, I showed her Project 4K 77 and 83, and comparing that to the 4K UHD of Empire, which I actually like that 4K UHD, it both looks amazing, and I don't mind the CGI edits. Most of them are really good. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, even she was like, why aren't we watching something of this quality? And I'm like, because I want to show you the authentic version, the original version. I don't want to show you the version that's been edited, because you won't understand why it's bad. So, yeah. So, there are tricky parts, but for the most part, buy physical media, especially if you're like supporting local stores and stuff like that. I know I've mentioned Amazon and eBay, but to get a lot of these releases, it's pretty hard unless you go with a big chain. Again, eBay is not exactly a big chain, but in this case it was a store on eBay. But yeah, I would pin my recommendations there. Buy physical media. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Adios.